everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to the 2023 winter campaign for Arkham Horror, the card game. We tied up our loose ends for 2022 in yesterday's end-of-year chat, and we've had a busy week of videos on the channel besides that. This will be one of, if not the, last video on the channel for 2022. So even though I said it during yesterday's end-of-year chat, thank you all once again for a great 2022, and let's have another great year in 2023. Anyway, like I mentioned, we're about to start the 2023 winter campaign, and this year's winter campaign will be our first on-channel run of Edge of the Earth. In this video, we're going to meet the investigators, then we have a very long intro to go through, and then we'll do the tarot reading for the first scenario. With that, let's go meet our investigators, and let's start with our Monster Puncher. Our Monster Puncher for this campaign is Tony Morgan, the Bounty Hunter. Tony came into the game with Dream Eaters, and it's been a while since we featured a rogue on the channel, dating back to last year's winter campaign with Monterey Jack when we ventured into Path to Carcosa. But unlike in that campaign, our rogue is our Monster Puncher in this campaign. With that, let's go ahead and go through Tony's cards, and we'll start with his Investigator card. So once again, he's the Bounty Hunter. 2 Will, 3 Lore, 5 Combat, 2 Agility. You may take an additional action during your turn, which can only be used to engage or fight an enemy with 1 or more bounties on it. Elder Sign effect, +2. Place 1 bounty on bounty contracts. When I find that beast, I'll put it down for good. 9 health and 5 sanity. Then taking a look at the back of the card. Deck size of 30. Secondary class choice. At deck creation, you have to choose Guardian, Seeker, or Survivor. Deck building options, Rogue cards level 0 to 5, Neutral 0 to 5, up to 10, 0 to 1, events and or skills of your chosen secondary class, and my chosen secondary class for this campaign is Guardian. Deck building requirements don't count toward deck size. Bounty contracts, 2 copies of Tony's 38 Long Cold, Tony's Quarry, and 1 random basic weakness. And then the story. Tony's tracked down low-life scum in every lousy corner of the world, but nothing could have prepared him for the thing he killed in Innsmouth. It had the form of a man, more or less, but it was covered in loathsome scales and slime, like some horrid creature of the deep. It stank of salt water, rotten fish, and blood. He should have let it go down the river. He should have let it go when it dove into the river, but he'd never let a bounty escape before, and he wasn't about to start then. Ever since, he's found a new kind of dirtbag to hunt. Ordinary mobster or otherworldly monster, Tony will take it down, if someone is willing to pay him for it. Yikes. And we'll take a look at his signature card. So he gets 2 copies of this signature asset, Tony's Long Cold. Tony's 38 Long Cold. Uses 3 ammo. As a reaction, after you play Tony's 38 Long Cold, play another Tony's 38 Long Cold from your hand at no cost. As an action, you spend 1 ammo to fight. You get +1 combat for each bounty on the attacked enemy, and the attack deals +1 damage. If this attack defeats an enemy with 1 or more bounties on it, place 1 contract on bounty contracts. It takes up a hand slot. Obviously, we want to be able to play both of them in one shot if we can, but that's amusing for during this scenario. Anyway, he's also got a signature permanent bounty contract, which gets 6 bounties on it. Reaction, after an enemy enters play, move 1 to 3 bounties from bounty contracts to that enemy to a maximum of that enemy's health. Forced, after you defeat an enemy with 1 or more bounties on it, move its bounties to your resource pool as resources. So we do want to use that if we can, but we need to be careful because we might run into Tony's Quarry. His signature weakness is an enemy. 4 fight, 3 health, 1 evade. Spawn location farthest from Tony Morgan, humanoid monster deep 1. Aloof. Forced, after Tony's Quarry enters play, place 1 doom on it, then place 1 resource on it from the token pool as a bounty. 1 health, 2 sanity on attack. Yikes. So yeah, the aloof might be a bit of a problem, but nothing we can do about that. Now, I normally don't go through a basic weakness unless it comes up during the scenario, but Tony's is a permanent weakness, and it relates to the tarot deck, so we're going to go through it since it'll always be active. So for Tony's basic weakness, he's damned. Like I said, it's a permanent, so it'll always be in play. Before setting up each game, draw a random card from the tarot deck and place it in front of you in the reverse position. Each other investigator ignores its effects. So the way we have to deal with that is when we go through the tarot reading, we have to deal with that first, and then we get to have the both investigators part of the tarot reading. But anyway, with that musing done, let's go meet this campaign's Kluver. Our Kluver in this campaign is Norman Withers, the astronomer. Norman has been in the game for a while. He came in with his novella, Ire of the Void, but he got another official release from Edge of the Earth. Anyway, let's go into Norman's investigator cards, and we'll start off with his actual investigator card. So he's a Seeker, 4 will, 5 lore, 2 combat, 1 agility, Miskatonic. Play with the top card of your deck revealed. Once per round, you may play the top card of your deck as if it were in your hand at -1 resource cost. Forced, after a weakness is revealed while on top of your deck, draw it. Elder Sign plus X. You may swap the top card of your deck with a card in your hand. X is the resource cost of the top card of your deck. So that has a potential to be a very large Elder Sign effect. 6 health, 8 sanity for Norman. Then looking at the back of his card, deck size of 30, deck building options, Seeker cards level 0, Mystic cards level 1 to 5, neutral cards level 0 to 5, up to 5 other Mystic cards level 0. Deck building requirements that don't count toward deck size. Livre de Bon, I don't know what language that is, I probably butchered it though. The Harbinger, 1 random basic weakness. The stars hold many secrets, and Norman was never one to ignore a mystery. So when 6 stars vanished from the sky, he simply couldn't let it go. Not even when his colleagues told him that he was just imagining things. It took him years, and the near death of his career. But he eventually found his answers in an ancient tome. It described the stars, and the sequence in which they would vanish, down to the very date and time. It was a sign, the book said, of the end of everything. It was the harbinger of a great beast that would tear asunder all that man had wrought. Norman isn't sure what he can do to stop the beast from destroying the world, but if the stars hold the answer, then he will find it. So the top card of Norman's deck will basically act as another card in hand for Norman, but we'll need to deal with his personal weakness as soon as we see it. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into his signature cards. So his signature asset is Livre de Bon, Hyperborean Grimoire, and I didn't talk about the commits at all on Tony's Colt 45s, but anyway. This one gives 2 will and a wild card on commit. Norman Withers deck only. As a fast action, exhaust Livre de Bon to either swap the top card of your deck with a card in your hand, or commit the top card of your deck to an eligible skill test performed by an investigator at your location, and it takes up a hand slot. But his personal weakness is the Harbinger. Revelation, place this card on top of your deck. While the Harbinger is revealed and on top of your deck, cards in your deck can't be searched, drawn, or manipulated in any way except by the below ability. 2 actions to discard the Harbinger. This ability may be activated while the Harbinger is on top of your deck as if it were in your threat area. So yeah, we'll need to get rid of that as soon as we see it. And then like Tony, Norman has a permanent as well that we need to deal with, that we need to go through now. But unlike Tony's permanent weakness, this has potential to be good. So Forced Learning is one of the cards that I took when I built this deck. Limit 1 per deck, purchase at deck creation. Increase your deck size by 15. During each upkeep phase, instead of drawing 1 card, draw 2 and discard 1 of them. Unfortunately, we can't use that to get rid of a weakness voluntarily, but that can help us hopefully speed through our deck to get what we need. But anyway, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself there. And Norman's basic weakness won't cause the problems that Tony's will, so no need to go through that right away. But anyway, with that, we can move back up top for the tarot reading. We're back up top of the tarot reading. First up, we have Tony's Damned tarot reading, which we have to flip the bat. We have to reveal a random bad card and a random tarot card and flip it. So we've got the tarot deck right here. I will give this a shuffle, And to cut, we'll take 3 random cards. We'll take 3 cards. The first one is Tony's Damned card. We find Judgment 20. When the game begins, replace a skull token in the cast bag with a 0. Swap them back after the game ends. This is actually going to affect both of us, unfortunately, because we have to flip it over to the bad side. When the game begins, replace the highest non-negative token in the cast bag with a skull. Swap them back after the game ends. So, yikes. Alright, so we'll grab I believe the highest modifier in here is a +1. So, yeah, there's a couple +1s in here. So I'll put that... Yeah, actually, yeah, well, that'll be fine. So, make a note of that. Judgment 20. Sorry, I'm just making some notes off camera. Anyway, there's the skull going into the starting bag, and as you can see, I am going to be using the another set of cast tokens from Orbits for this campaign, and I'll put a link to his website in the description down below. So anyway, skull going into the bag, and now we've got the group tarot reading now that we've flipped a card for Tony. So first card we have to look at is the World 21. Each investigator not defeated during this game may remove 1 trauma of their choice during its resolution on the good side. If we flip it to the bad, each investigator defeated during this game suffers 1 trauma of their choice during resolution. I expect we'll be flipping that since it's the first scenario of the campaign. But let's see what's on the back of here. The Magician 1. Each investigator begins the game with 3 additional resources on the good side, and on the bad, each investigator begins the game with 3 fewer resources and can't gain resources during their first turn. Yeah, we're flipping the World 21. So the investigators will begin the game with 3 additional resources. But thanks to the World 21, if they're defeated, they'll take an extra trauma of choice. Tony's will probably be physical, Norman's will be mental. But anyway, with tarot readings all done, now we can move into the campaign intro. I'm making a separate transition here for the campaign intro because this one's a long one, so let's get right into it.
Edge of the Earth, Prologue. I am forced into speech because men of science have refused to follow my advice without knowing why. It is altogether against my will that I tell my reasons for opposing this contemplated invasion of the Antarctic. With its vast fossil hunt and its wholesale boring and melting of the ancient ice cap, and I am the more reluctant because my warning may be in vain. Doubt of the real facts, as I must reveal them, is inevitable. Yet if I suppressed what will seem extravagant and incredible, there would be nothing left. H.P. Lovecraft, At the Mountains of Madness. Prologue 1. You understand now, yes? Why this expedition must be stopped? Professor William Dyer sits across from you at his office desk. A wealth of academic papers and scientific journals lies sprawled between you, including Dyer's own lengthy account of his journey to the Antarctic. Up until the publication of this revised report, the alleged truth. The university's last expedition to Antarctica yielded very little in the way of scientific discoveries. At Dyer's request, you'd read through this new report of what really happened beyond those mountains of madness, as he had dubbed them. You scarcely would have believed any of it were it not for the bevy of photographs and drawings that came along with it. Evidence of mangled, dissected bodies, of perplexing 5-pointed snow graves, of strange specimens found half buried in the ice, and finally, aerial shots of the jagged black peaks described in Dyer's tale. Dyer has called on you to help convince his colleagues to abandon their planned follow-up expedition. His student, Danforth, the only other member of the expedition to reach the alien stone city described in Dyer's report, paces back and forth by the entrance to Dyer's office, muttering nonsensically to himself while you consider their strange tale. You're still unsure what to make of all this. On the one hand, Dyer's concern seems genuine, and his account is filled with such detail and specificity that you find it difficult to doubt its authenticity. And yet, there's no way it could all be true. An ancient city in the ice, built by primordial beings? So-called elder things? How could such things be real? Danforth mumbles something about a nameless black pit as you place Dyer's report back on his desk. The professor gazes at you with sleepless, bloodshot eyes. Well, Dyer asks, will you help us stop this madness? Will you make them see reason? The lead investigator must decide, choose one. I believe you, but if what you say is true, should we not investigate these findings further? Proceed to Prologue 2. I'm sorry, but this seems too wild to be true. Skip to Prologue 3.
Okay, before I make the decision on what we're doing, I'm actually going to change out the image of Edge of the Earth I'm using because I want to be able to follow along with the campaign guide while this is all going on, which means... Actually, let's do this. I'll bring them up here, tip the camera. Perfect, and I think this will work. I can keep the tarot cards off to the side. Anyway, so we have a decision to make right now. We have to decide if we believe him or if we think this is crazy. Now, given what we've seen and with Norman's story, I think it would make sense that Norman would at least believe him. So Norman's going to urge Tony that let's investigate further. So that brings us to Prologue 2.
Prologue 2. Dyer lets out an anxious breath and relents. I suppose I might have said the same thing once. But now, after what I've seen, a shudder courses through the man's aging body. You are venturing somewhere humanity does not belong. I am starting to believe that scholars such as ourselves can only continue to probe the depths of science for so long before we are laid low by what we find. Or by what finds us, Danforth chimes from behind. Dyer glances at his student, studying his expression, then turns his attention back to you. If you go on this journey with Dr. Kensler, the lot of you may not ever return. Will you not reconsider? You explain that while there is surely significant danger in your expedition, Dr. Amy Kensler, the scientist leading this new trek to Antarctica, has taken precautions to ensure it does not meet the same end as Dyer's. More importantly, it is the only way to understand the threats they encountered, and the only way to prepare if such threats are unearthed by other, less cautious scientists. Yes, I confess I had that same worry, he replies. We are unlikely to convince the greater scientific community, I'm afraid. Perhaps it would be better to return and learn more about what we saw. Danforth nods. I agree. How do we know what we saw is anything more than the overactive imaginings of two explorers with a queer fascination for the bizarre and the macabre? Of Arthur Gordon Pym's ill-fated journeys. Dyer's eyes narrow at his student. The knowledge reflected in his dark eyes chills you to the core. You say such things, and yet I dare say you did not see what I saw. The student scoffs. You are not the one who glimpsed that mirage at the edge of the mountainside. I am not referring to the mirage, Danforth. I am referring to what I saw in you, Dyer retorts. The things you said on the airplane, the look on your face, I'll never forget. Silence pervades the room as Danforth returns to his corner to languish in his own doubt. Dyer pleads with you. Whatever the case may be, is there nothing I can say to deter you? You ponder for a brief moment, then shake your head. There's too much at stake, especially if Dyer's account turns out to be the truth. All right then, Dyer concludes with a sigh. Since you lot have no clue what you were getting into, I suppose we have no choice but to come to. You can tell Dr. Kensler that she wins. We will be ready to leave within the week. You shake his hand and make for the door. I hope, for all our sakes, that Danforth is right, he adds before you are out of earshot. In your campaign log, record, the investigators convinced Dyer to allow the expedition. Add one cultist token to the chaos bag for the remainder of the campaign. Skip to Prologue 4.
All right, I will get that queued up, and then we'll go ahead and make some notes here. So, the investigators convinced Dyer to allow the Expedition. There's our cultist going into the chaos bag. And now we're ready for Prologue 4.
Prologue 4. You peer up at the overcast sky, hoping it does not forebode things to come. Only a sliver of sunlight peeks through the clouds. You shudder and pull your coat close over your shoulders, then continue onward to the edge of Boston Harbor. Gather each of the cards from the expedition team encounter set. As you read the rest of this prologue and each member of the expedition team is introduced, find the story asset from that encounter set that matches their name and acquaint yourself with that card.
Which I have all of the expedition members off of shot here. So we'll do what the nice gentleman who's narrating this for us asks, and every time we hear a character name, we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves to that card. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and lay these out off shot. Oops, there's 9 of them, so I need to move that out of the way. Right. Okay, got them all laid out, so once again, take it away.
Standing in front of the plankway leading up to the deck of the Theodosia is Dr. Amy Kensler, a professor of biology at Miskatonic University. The no-nonsense scientist has been a fixture of the university's sciences department for over a decade. Without so much as peering up from her clipboard, she crosses off your name as you approach. Good of you to make it on time. Mr. Ellsworth will take your luggage aboard.
Before he does, though, let's go ahead and meet Dr. Kensler. Dr. Amy Kensler, professor of biology, 2 health, 4 sanity, partner, which will be explained later, I'm sure, uses 3 secrets. As an action, spend 1 secret and exhaust Dr. Amy Kensler. Investigate. Investigate with a base lore of 5. If you succeed, look at the top card of any investigator's deck or the encounter deck. You may discard that card. All of this is so fascinating, do you not agree? 2 health and 4 sanity. I wonder if I can use that on if I pull a weakness in a player deck. I'll actually have to see if I can get a ruling on that. But anyway, for now, continue.
I will I? The man standing next to her replies with a chuckle. He offers you his hand in introduction, and you shake it. Roll to Ellsworth at your service.
Yes, he will take our luggage aboard, but before he does, we'll meet him. So, roll to Ellsworth, intrepid explorer, uses 5 supplies. As a fast action, during an investigator's turn, exhaust roll to Ellsworth and spend 1 supply. Choose a treachery attached to any location. Treat that treachery's text box as if it were blank until the end of this turn. I have been all over the world. Please, just trust me. 4 health, 2 sanity. Continue.
By way of introduction, Dr. Kensler explains, Mr. Ellsworth has been on over a dozen expeditions and comes highly recommended. I'm sure his expertise will be invaluable in the weeks to come. Ellsworth rolls his eyes. His expertise, yes. And his willingness to be used as manual labor, he adds with a chuckle as he hefts your luggage and takes it up the plankway. Come on, Ellsworth, shouts another voice from inside the ship. A gruff-looking man with a thick brown beard emerges, motioning for Ellsworth to hurry. We got a ton of work to do to get done before we embark. A little busy, Cookie, Ellsworth shouts back in reply. Then he turns back to you and remarks over his shoulder, Don't mind him. Cookie is a bit of an intense fellow, but he's all right. The name's Fredericks, the gruff man barks back. James Fredericks. I swear, sometimes I think I'm the only one here who's ready for this damned trip, he mutters angrily. And didn't anyone ever tell you it's bad luck to name a ship after someone who died at sea?
Right, so let's go ahead and meet Cookie. James Cookie Fredericks, dubious choice. Ally veteran warfare. Uses 3 ammo. Action, spend an ammo and exhaust James Cookie Fredericks. Fight. Fight with a base combat skill of 5. If you succeed and the attacked enemy is non-elite, it cannot attack for the remainder of the round. No, I ain't leaving my damn gun back at camp. 5 health, 1 sanity. Alright, continue.
Another voice calls down from the deck of the ship. Cookie, if you could be so kind as to lower your voice, some of us are trying to work up here. The man responds with a grunt and ducks back inside the ship, rolling his eyes. You crane your head upwards and see a young woman leaning over the railing of the ship's deck, her long brown hair tied in a thick ponytail that dangles around her neck. Hey, you made it, she calls out to you. Dr. Kensler is pretty excited that you're coming along. Looking forward to working with you. Without looking from her clipboard, Dr. Kensler mumbles. Miss Takada Hiroko is our airplane mechanic. As with the previous expedition, we will be constructing our planes on site. No need to worry. She may be the youngest in her field, but she knows what she's doing.
Well, let's see what she's going to be doing for us. Takada Hiroko, aeroplane mechanic, uses 9 resources. As an action, exhaust Takada Hiroko. Move up to 3 resources from Takada Hiroko to your resource pool. Nobody knows these machines better than I do. 3 health and 3 sanity. Before we continue meeting the team, I need to change my battery. Sorry about that. Had to change the battery out. Continue.
More of the crew begin to arrive, one by one. The first is a man in his 30s with a wispy blonde beard and bright green eyes. Mr. Avery Claypool. Dr. Kensler introduces you to the man, and the two of you shake hands. Mr. Claypool is an associate of Mr. Ellsworth. He'll be serving as our guide in the Antarctic.
Let's give him a little bit more of an intro than that, shall we? Avery Claypool, Antarctic Guide. Uses 5 supplies. As a reaction, when an investigator at your location reveals a frost token during a skill test, exhaust Avery Claypool and spend 1 supply. Cancel that token and reveal a new one. Weather is turning foul again. I would tell you to turn back, but I gather you would refuse. Right? 3 health and 3 sanity. Now, this is the first time that it's mentioning frost tokens, so let's go ahead and go through them real quick. So they're a new token that was introduced to the game with Edge of the Earth. So this is what they look like in the set that in the set of chaos tokens that I'm using. So when this comes out of the bag during a skill test, it's a -1 and then you draw again. If your second token is another frost token on that test, then that will be an automatic fail. So we do want to keep an eye on that, whereas an Avery gives us a little bit of mitigation against that. So anyway, now that we're through that, continue.
Weather permitting, Claypool jokes. Honestly, we'll be lucky if we can even get off the ice shelf. I'm confident with your skills we will make it as far as Dyer and Lake did. That is what I'm afraid of, Claypool mutters, walking briskly past Kensler and up the plankway. On his way up, he passes Ellsworth, and the two freeze, locking eyes. You could swear that the temperature lowers several degrees as the two brush by one another without a single word. They are usually on better terms, Dr. Kensler says under her breath, but recently fell into some issue or another. They had better learn to live with their differences. They'll be unable to avoid one another for quite some time, after all. You watch as Claypool's gaze wanders back to Ellsworth for just a fraction of a second before he turns away angrily and enters the ship. The next one to arrive is a woman with warm brown skin and weary eyes. Along with her luggage, she carries a rather large, bright red medical kit emblazoned with a white cross. She extends her hand, and you cannot help but notice the nervous tremble in Dr. Kensler's hand as she shakes it. Thank you for joining us on this voyage, Mala. Oh, Amy, someone has to keep you alive, she replies. There's a moment of awkward silence as Dr. Kensler glances up at the woman, then down at her feet, her cheeks tinged red. Right. Well then, she remarks, and continues up the walkway. Dr. Kensler clears her throat once she is out of earshot. Dr. Mala Sena is our physician, she explains. It took some convincing to get her to join us, so try not to abuse her expertise with inconsequential problems. Frostbite will be a very real concern, as will gangrene and hypothermia. Try to stay on her good side. You're unsure if Dr. Kensler is joking.
And with that slight unsure if she's joking, let's go ahead and meet our physician. Dr. Malasina, daring physician, uses 3 supplies. Action, spend 1 supply and exhaust Dr. Malasina. Heal 2 damage from an investigator or another ally asset at your location. Want to survive this trip? Good. Then don't get on my bad side. 4 health, 2 sanity. She could use a little slice of humble pie, because we're probably going to have bigger problems on this campaign than getting on her bad side. But anyway, continue.
A man's voice pierces the sudden silence, along with the clamor of a dog barking. Anu! Damn it, Anu, don't run off like that, he shouts. That will be Mr. Ashavak, Dr. Kensler says, scratching off another name from her list. Moments later, you watch as a large gray-furred dog bounds toward you, its tongue hanging out of its mouth in excitement. You lean over and pet the dog, running your hand along her thick, long fur. The man finally catches up to the dog, huffing with effort. Anu, come on, I thought I trained you better than this, he says, catching his breath. Elia Ashavak is our dog handler, Dr. Kensler interjects. He is in charge of taking care of the 44 sled dogs we are bringing along with us, not to mention their feeding and training.
Well, let's go ahead and meet our dog keeper, shall we? Elia Ashavak, dog handler. Uses 3 secrets. Action, spend 1 secret and exhaust Elia Ashavak. Evade. Attempts to evade with a base agility value of 5. If you succeed, you may move to a connecting location. Anu's got the scent. Haven't you, girl? 3 health and 3 sanity. Continue.
Anu here makes 45. He corrects her before turning to shake your hand. Also, we'll be holed up in this ship for a while, so let's drop the formalities. Just Elia is fine. As the man turns and his enormous dog boards the ship, you ask Dr. Kensler if she received the letter you sent regarding Professor Dyer's concerns. I am well aware of his report, Dr. Kensler replies, but as I have told him time and time again, I have no intention of seizing or postponing this expedition. Just then, footsteps approach behind you, interrupting your conversation. Speak of the devil, Dr. Kensler mutters, looking up from her clipboard. You turn to find none other than Dr. William Dyer and his student Danforth, each toting several bags of luggage. I'm glad you finally decided to join us, William.
Technically, it's Professor William Dyer, Professor of Geology. Uses 3 secrets. As an action, spend 1 secret and exhaust Professor William Dyer. Heal 2 horror from an investigator or another ally asset at your location. Doubt of the real facts, as I must reveal them, is inevitable. H.P. Lovecraft at the Mountains of Madness. Along with Danforth, brilliant student, uses 5 secrets. Reaction, after an investigator at your location resolves a Tekalili weakness, exhaust Danforth and spend 1 secret. That investigator draws 2 cards. Danforth was a great reader of bizarre material. H.P. Lovecraft at the Mountains of Madness. 2 health and 4 sanity. Professor Dyer, by the way, had 1 health and 5 sanity. And that's the entire investigation team, so hopefully I won't need to butt in anymore and we can play this all the way through to the end. Continue.
He acknowledges, I am not here because I believe in your mission statement. I am here to make sure you and your companions don't get themselves killed. You have no idea what you're walking into. Then you have ample enough opportunity to educate us along the way. She turns to address young Danford, who is staring up at the tanker ship with a pained expression. Danforth, I hope you understand that you are under no obligation to come along on this expedition. After everything you went through, she trails off, her eyes raised in worry atypical of her usual cold demeanor. I appreciate your concern, Dr. Kensler, but I'm looking forward to the opportunity to return to Antarctica. I need to be there again. She follows his gaze to the Theodosia, which bobs steadily up and down on the choppy Atlantic waters. Very well. We are still working to get all of our equipment aboard. Mr. Ellsworth can help you find your rooms. You nod and begin boarding, along with the remaining crew and the rest of the expedition team, mostly students of the university, along with several unaffiliated explorers and several researchers in a variety of fields. Once more you spy the scant sliver of sunlight above before it is smothered by gray clouds. These 9 characters will be your partners throughout the expedition. Their various talents will be crucial in the scenarios to come. However, if you wish for this expedition to be successful, it is imperative that you keep them healthy and sane. In the expedition team section of the campaign log, you can view the status of each member of the expedition team. As they are injured or begin to question their sanity, update the campaign log accordingly. You will be instructed when to do so. As each team member is killed or driven insane, cross them off this list one by one. When you are ready to begin the campaign, proceed to Scenario 1, Ice and Death.
That will be our first scenario on Sunday, but that was quite a long campaign intro, but that will do it for this intro to the winter campaign. Sunday, like I said, will be in the first scenario, Ice and Death. Wednesday on the weeknight videos, we're stepping back into the background campaign for Hero Realms. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.